Hey everyone, welcome back to The Great Retention with Kamber Parker Bowden, sponsored by Generational Performance Solutions. I'm Kamber, founder and CEO of GPS, where we bring you strategies to cultivate a high-performing and committed team in a rapidly changing workplace. Whether you're looking to enhance cross-generational communication or navigate generational dynamics in the office, you've come to the right place. Today, I am really excited to have my friend Jeremie Kubicek, author, speaker, and co-founder of Giant Worldwide, joining me from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Jeremie has a long list of accolades. Like, we would be here for the entire podcast episode if I really went through all of them. But to keep it short here in the intro, he has a long list of these accolades as a successful entrepreneur and business owner of dozens of companies. That's right, dozens. But the last several years have been defined by helping organizations build stronger leaders through the wide variety of resources available at Giant Worldwide, where he developed the 5 Voices assessment, which we'll definitely dig into today. Jeremie is a national keynote speaker and author of 7 books, including The 5 Gears, The 5 Voices, and The 100X Leader. I had the privilege of meeting Jeremie at a workshop he led for my good friend Jonathan Parker here in Greenville, South Carolina, where we started talking about generations, and the rest is history. I'm thrilled to have him join me virtually today to discuss the modern workforce, self-awareness, and the importance of relational intelligence in leaders. Jeremie, welcome to the show.
Good to be with you. Thank you, Kamber. That was like, wow. I don't know what bio that was, but I appreciate it.
Barkley, shout out to Barkley on the team. She did a great job, but really, how could we even condense that? Because you have done so much, and it's why we asked you to be on the podcast. And also, Jeremie, you're a great person, you're a great leader, and so we really are excited to have you here with us. We know that you will bring a lot of value to our audience who are listening and watching today. So we're going to dive right in to our lightning round question. So in a couple of sentences or less, tell us about something that is not on your resume.
Something that's not on my resume is I played in a blues band in Russia, and as you do when I lived in Moscow.
Of course.
And I played harmonica and sang backup, and then I had a duet as well. Okay. And we would travel around singing the Beatles and James Taylor songs. So,
that's so fun. Gosh, I just love this question. And maybe this is the same answer, but if you were not in the leadership consulting space, what would you be doing? Would it be hitting the road or?
Honestly, if I could do anything, I would travel around the world, encourage people, and then I would do celebration dinners. Ooh. I have this thing I do. I do dinners for people, and I create experiences around dinners, and they're basically affirmation experiences. And people freak out about them because they're so unique. It's ambiance, great food, great experience. And then we do these celebrations, and it's a game changer.
I love that. I want to know more, but in the interest of the lightning round, we'll come back to that later. What is the best professional advice you've received from a mentor?
I have a lot. When I was in my 20s, it was all about, it's not who you work for. It's not what you do, it's who you work for. Yeah. So finding the who over the what, right? And how important that was in my early stages. But I think the one that I've heard the most, I had a really great mentor of mine, and he had this really funny saying. He'd go, Jeremie, what do fountains do? And he would ask me about fountains. And he would say, I'd say, well, fountains, they show, they flow. They bring ambiance, water, refreshment. He goes, yeah, but what if the water's bad? I'm like, yeah, people ignore the water. And he goes, here's the big advice, Jeremie, be a good fountain. And it sounds so simple, but it's actually polluted water no one wants to be around. Yeah. But when you're an overflowing fountain, people will come to you. You don't have to chase them.
Yeah, I love that. Really powerful. Lastly, what is the best business book you have ever received a recommendation for? I'm sure you have many of those as well.
The best business book, I actually love it. It's called Heroic Leadership. I mean, outside of my own books, I'm not biased. But,
yeah, of course.
Heroic Leadership by Chris Lowney. And it talks about how the Jesuits over 450 years changed and affected the world. But they have these principles with Loyola that are unbelievable. And we set our business, we built Giant based on that book.
Very cool. I'm going to add this. We have like a podcast book list now at this point because all of our guests make some great recommendations. But of course, we have to take a moment to just highlight your 7 books. It's rare that we get to meet people who have written that many, but they're really amazing. And so for our listeners who are not familiar with Jeremie's work, please make sure to go check that out. All right, let's dive in. Thank you for participating in my lightning round. Yes, let's talk a little bit about 5 Voices and Giant. What should people know who are not familiar about your organization and the work that you do?
Yeah, we basically we realized that most adults are cynical know-it-alls. They don't read anymore. And we were so tired of the 20th century leadership guru model. So we said, let's actually create visual tools that are that a 13-year-old could get so that they scale. They're simple enough, but they scale inside an organization and people can use them to build healthy, multiplying leaders. And we started doing that for years and years, and it just continues to spread. We're one of those organizations that we spread through referrals more than hype. Mm-hmm. And everyone that goes through something with Giant are like, oh my goodness, this is so good. Because we basically created visual tools that are like mirrors, and they reflect self-awareness. They show you what it's like to be on the other side of you versus telling you or pushing. It's actually a science behind it. Mm-hmm. And so my latest book, The Voice-Driven Leader, is an example where it puts it all together. If you want to develop people, it tells you exactly how to do that. Mm-hmm. If you want to reset peace, the peace index is perfect for you. If you want to, so on and so forth. And each of the books have their own really practical process. So that's a little bit about us.
Yeah. And can you share with the audience, what does Giant look like today? Like the team makeup, how many guides you have, maybe explain guides and catalysts just so people can really understand. Because I'm so impressed with what you have built through this referral-based experience.
Yeah. So we've certified people. We certify people on the 5 Voices. The 5 Voices is kind of the commercial system that we use. It's all about communication, relationship, and building trust so you can get alignment with your people. So it's really like how to become a people whisperer. How do you become a person that people would want to follow, not have to follow? So it's the 5 Voices, and 5voices.com is the easiest way for people to enter in. Mm-hmm. We have about 500 or so guides that are active, that are working around the world, and they work inside companies. These guys are coaches, consultants, counselors. They'll work inside like Google, Microsoft, Biogen, large and small companies. And then we have another 300-400 or so catalysts that are internal champions who bring it inside companies, and they run the system inside their businesses. Mm-hmm. And then we have people who take the assessment, our clients, again, all over the world. We're probably in about 100 or so countries that we work in.
It's amazing. Thank you. And I love what you shared in your initial response was that, these tools are built for people so that it is reflective and it's just so digestible. Like you make it easy to comprehend and understand, but it's robust. I mean, you have so many tools for people to utilize. And so if you have not, again, checked this out, please do so because what y'all have built is amazing. And, I know we'll continue to talk about that throughout. Yeah. But tell us a little bit. I know you had a kind of watershed moment. So when I heard your workshop, you shared about this watershed moment in your early 30s that led to a complete overhaul of your career. Can you share a little bit about how you got into the relational intelligence business based on that experience?
Yeah, so great question. Whenever I was in my 20s, I was a very, very aggressive, ambitious person. So I moved to Moscow. I just turned 21. And I was, it was a crazy era. So I started early. I built companies, sold them, moved back to Oklahoma, worked with a group, got into private equity, bought companies, started businesses, sold companies. And it was like I was trying to go for it. And with that, I was a good guy, but I was a very ambitious person. Then I get to Mexico. And when I was 32 or so, I would just worked for private equity. I just got out and I was starting my own business, and it was called Giant. Started Giant when I was 32 years old. And my wife and I were going to Mexico, we took some friends with us, but we got stuck because of a hurricane. And a hurricane was coming. Hurricane Isidore was a Category 3 hurricane. And what happened was basically I had the opportunity to get hit by a drunk driver, if that's such a thing.
You had an opportunity.
And I had an opportunity to grow because I had just watched Signs with Mel Gibson, and he just lost his wife by a drunk driver. She got hit by a drunk driver, and he gives up his faith in God. He becomes a cynical, bitter person, all jaded, all this stuff. And after the movie, I was like, if that ever happened to Kelly, literally, we had just finished watching the movie. Mm-hmm. So if that ever happens to Kelly, I don't want to be like Mel Gibson. And I said, I'll trust you. I won't be like him. Mm-hmm. Anything happens to my kids, I'll trust you. Anything happens to me, I'll trust you. And in a nanosecond, we get hit by this drunk driver. It's going 40 miles an hour. We were going 0. And it pushed me into the side. Sternum pops out, 9 ribs snap, 6 ribs clean snap, and 3 fractured. And then paralyzed from the waist down. I'm not paralyzed. Severed intestines, bruised every organ in Mexico in a hurricane at 10:30 at night. So that's that story. We would have many, many miracles and things that took place over that next week. Too long for this podcast. Yeah. But what it did is it changed the way I had surgery. I was 10 days in Mexico, and then another hurricane was coming. So we got out just in time. And we started Giant with one client. And what it did is we took our brand Giant, which is very bold, and we squashed the I, and we took the I down to a little I. And it actually stands for David, not Goliath, or David, not Saul. Mm-hmm. So it's about humility, not about pride. And I think I led most of my life very ambitious, prideful. And so what happened is I got the pride killed out of me. I mean, not really, because it's still in you always, but it really changed my entire view of like, hey, I've got another chance to live. What if I gave my life away? What if I helped people do things a little differently? And so I've just been building businesses that transform people and that just are very unique. They actually work. Mm-hmm. We create things that work to change people forever.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. I know that there's more to that story, but I love that you kind of tied it back into that little I, because the first thing that I remember hearing about Giant from you was like, we're here to build humble servant leaders, right? People who are willing to drive others in a way that is very relational. And it's not about, how many people can you manage? It's not about the pride. It is about how can you humbly lead people. And so it's just so cool that your journey has led you here, but also that timing, my goodness. Thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely. Yeah.
On the topic of watershed moments, kind of jumping into the generational side of things, we know that watershed moments are referred to often when we think of generations, things that kind of define a generation. And as you have met, spoken to, and trained thousands of leaders over the last 20 years, are there any watershed moment patterns that you have noticed across generations, maybe that are not what you think of immediately? And what are the biggest cultural moments that you think are influencing broad leadership styles today?
Okay, so 2 questions there. First one is what I've noticed is when people get to the end of themselves, meaning they've tried everything and they don't have any other solutions, and they know, like I love this question, how's that working for you? I love to ask that because people will whine and complain, and they'll go, well, how's that working for you? And then we put the definition of insanity in there. It's like, well, you're doing the same things over and over and over again. Like, have you ever tried to maybe do something different? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, everything you're trying is based on what you think should be done from your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So a watershed moment would be this, like, what would it look like if you could walk a mile in their shoes and you could understand how they think? I'm going to give you an example. And I lived in Moscow for a few years, and I studied Russian history. Now, I'm not gonna say I'm pro-Soviet here, okay, at all, because I'm a pro-liberation person. But when I studied World War II from their perspective, and their view was we had Napoleon and Hitler try to cross over Eastern Europe and take us out. Mm-hmm. So we built a moat, and you all call it the Iron Curtain. We called it a moat. So interesting, because we go, well, they're the Iron Curtain, and they were taking ground, and they were trying to dominate the culture. And so in the same case, well, everyone's leading out of fear and scarcity. So if you can walk a mile in someone else's shoes and go, well, how are you seeing the world? How are you thinking about it? Oh, that's why we built the 5 voices.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a guardian. You need detail. You need to make sure that we've got our ducks in the row. Get it. You're present-oriented, focused. I'm future-oriented. I'm thinking about tomorrow. I see. Yeah, we're missing each other. Totally. It's not that you're a jerk. It's that you're just very systematic and process-oriented. Yeah. And I haven't checked enough boxes to make you think that I'm safe. Mm-hmm. I get it. Mm-hmm. So a watershed moment is learning on how to be on what's it like to be on the other side of you. Mm-hmm. One more story real fast. I've worked with a number of college football programs. And in one case, I've worked with a coach. And when the transfer portal came in, he started losing players like crazy. And he had never lost players before but he had this thing like my way or the highway. He was kind of a General Patton type coach and offensive line coach. And when the portal opened up, if he says one thing negative, a player would just leave and go somewhere else because they think they could get money other places. And so for the first time ever, his watershed was, I need to understand and coach based on them, not just based on me, don't I? I'm like, yeah. Mm-hmm. I go, coach, you realize only 30% of your players are like you and want your style. 70% are just putting up with it. Mm-hmm. So you're not getting the most out of them. Would you like to know who your players are? And he's like, yeah. And we found out that he had 3 of the 5 voices on his team, but he had creatives and nurturers, and he was a guardian. And so he didn't know how to coach the creatives and nurturers. Yep. And they were introverts.
Yeah. I mean, it's so simple when you hear it like that, but when people are in it, right, and you're leading blindly, right? If you don't know your people, if you're only communicating and leading the way that you know how to do, you're missing. And it comes down to awareness. And I think that's why, we mesh and our content meshes so well, is because that is the message that we try to give. It's like, if you are coming into communication, leading a multi-generational team, and you're not considering all of the perspectives based on watershed moments of each generation, based on the major technologies that were, popular and coming up as they were coming of age, right? Like, if you're not aware, that's half the battle. And so having tools is the second piece, right? And knowing how to clearly communicate and lead and manage people. So I love both of those stories. I think it makes a lot of sense when you hear it. And when I think of, broader leadership trends, you mentioned, Jeremie, people are leading out of fear and scarcity, right? So when you have these tools to help, it can really drive success, but it's not going to happen overnight. Would you speak to anything there or move on?
Let's move on. I think that's a great point.
Speaking of common sense, we have a phrase that we like to share in keynotes and workshops and work with our client that is, common sense is no longer common. Because I have a lot of leaders over the years who will come to me, and their first comment is, once they express some frustration with younger generations, they're like, it's just common sense. How do they not know this? And the reality is, common sense is no longer common. Your version of common sense is different from the person next to you. And so what I have found, especially as a response to these established business leaders, is that when we hear younger workers, they immediately are disconnected if they hear something like that. They also will go look elsewhere, kind of to the point of the transfer portal. So in your experience, what are the aspects of relational intelligence that business leaders are missing due to unfair assumptions like this about their younger team members? And then I'll also say, there's also unfair assumptions that are happening the other direction, right? The younger workers of experienced talent. So it's a two-way street. So I'd love to hear your take on that.
Well, let's talk two-way for a minute, because it's really interesting. I've never thought of it like this, but whenever, like, my son and I do a lot of training on 13 to 18-year-olds. And we basically help dads connect with their 13 to 18-year-old kids.
Love that. And
we do a 13-year-old session where we basically line these boys up, and they have to make it through the handshake audit. And they have to shake. There's like 4 of us. They have to shake each person. They have to shake their hand and go, "Hi, my name is such and such." Shake the hand. "Good to meet you." Move on to the next one. Do it, and you do it 4 times in a row. And if you don't make it, you got to go back through until you make it all the way through the line. And it's so simple, but it's a training of the fundamentals. In today's world, we're not in an apprenticeship culture any longer. And that's what I just wrote about with the voice-driven leader. It's about apprenticeship. I'm going to do it and you watch. I'm going to do it and you help. Now you're going to do it and I'm going to help. Then you're going to do it and I'm going to watch. It's that process, right? So this whole idea is we're literally not developing our kids. We're expecting teachers or other things to develop kids. And it doesn't happen as much. So therefore, what's common sense is not necessarily common. But the two-way, the other side, is what the kids are learning, the adults don't know how to do.
Yeah.
They don't know how to prompt. They don't know how to deal with technology. They don't know how to, there's no ingenuity with technology. Whereas kids are, so it's to your point, kids have this ingenuity, and then older adults have a common sense. And so it's like, it goes back to this word called expectation. What are the expectations? Yep. And how can, if I'm a young leader, how can I be open to learn? And how can I be aware and learn how to become aware and then ask for help? Those are all really, really hard for that generation. On the flip side, if I'm older, how do I value the kids, and how do I open myself up, which is the work you're doing is so important. How do I open myself up to wanting to learn from those who are younger than me? And how do I even know how to ask for help? Because I don't even know what I'm asking for, but I need you to do such and such. Absolutely. And so that's this opportunity that I think you're so positioned so well at really helping people find that in between.
Yeah, thank you. I love your perspective on the two-way approach. And what we are seeing over and over again is reverse mentorship really does work. It's can you get people who are experienced? And I understand that the traditional sense of mentoring is kind of top down, right? It's seniors mentoring younger people than them. And by seniors, I mean, senior experienced professionals.
Older.
Right, older. But what if those same people looked at this as an opportunity to mentor, but then also learn, right? So exactly what you're saying. I mean, I think we're really speaking the same language here.
What if that's a great opportunity, by the way. You probably already do this, but to have these two-way learnings. So it's like a one-to-one or one and one. It's like, okay, Kamber, you and I, we're gonna get together. I want you to teach me and train me, and then conversely, I'm going to teach you and train you. I have one, you have one, and we learn from one another. Because if I made a list of like, here's what I want to know that I don't know how to do, and then maybe you could do the same or not. But that would be really interesting if you could humble yourself to, not you, but a person, humble yourself to the desire to want to learn.
Right.
And then I think that's really important.
Yeah, it is. We do have part of one of our advising strategy engagements that we do with people is when younger workers come in, we have a little like onboarding sprint for them where we walk through, what does that two-way mentorship look like? And then we do work with their leaders. But what you're talking about, kind of that one-on-one approach, is something that, I don't know, maybe we have to explore, Jeremie, because I like that. Mm-hmm. And it just comes back to the two-way street. So let's talk a little bit more about some tips that you have for leaders. Recently Forbes reported that generational conflicts are costing U.S. employers an estimated $56 billion. So that's a lot. What are your biggest tips for leaders who want to increase their own self-awareness in conflict? And how do they increase their team self-awareness as well? So, obviously you have tools for this, but in addition to that, what would you say to these leaders?
Yeah, so it's when you have conflict, it's usually around missed expectations. That's where it starts, or differences of opinion. And the very first thing we say is know others to lead others. Know yourself to lead yourself. Know others to lead others. Who are they? What's their voice? So my nemesis voice is a guardian. I'm a connector. I am a future-driven futurist. So I am always in the future, but I'm also a feeler. My wife is a guardian. We're nemesis voices to one another. She is a detailed focus on now. I'm focused on tomorrow. Mm-hmm. She is an introvert. I'm an extrovert. There's a number of things, right? So if you know and understand the other person, you're going to have more grace for them, or you'll have the ability to speak their language. So I lived in Russia, and I've lived in London. I've worked in Turkey. I've been in a lot of places, but whenever I was with my Turkish friends, if I'd go merhaba, and I'm like speaking Turkish, or I did it this weekend. This week I was in DC, and I was with a number of Ukrainians and Russian, and some new friends. But this Russian guy, he had just moved here, 6-7 years ago. And he was acclimating. His English was getting, pretty good. But I walk up to him. I go, and his name is Mark, his American name. Yeah. But I go, Modruja, Mark, kashizen da, ti poнимаешь, huh? And he's like, oh my gosh, like you speak my language? What? And he started to just jam. Yeah. And then I started to talk. But because I chose to speak his language, he realized he was valued. Right. And then he was more open to speaking my language. But he was more open because he really saw that I was really for him. Yeah. So speaking the language is building. It's really a communication strategy, and then what that does is that starts to build relational trust. The second thing is if you ever are in any frustration, never text it, never email it, ever. It's called the power of the medium. And the best way to do it is face to face. The second best is Zoom call, but they at least need to see your expression. Yeah. Here's what happens. Typically, someone gets frustrated, and out of frustration, they sent an email that gets exaggerated or read wrong, and then becomes a rift. Mm-hmm. And then it starts to pull apart. And then you're like, well, I didn't mean that. That wasn't my intent. Well, that's what it started, right? And then now that silo starts getting built when it didn't need to be that way. Yeah. When all you had to do was go, hey, Kamber, can we talk? I had this situation, and I just want to make sure, were you hearing me say this or that? Mm-hmm. And you go, no, I was saying that. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, we're good, thanks. Now we mitigated all that $56 billion of conflict from Forbes.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it comes down to expectations, to your point. It is about speaking their language and then making sure that you are using the correct medium so that you can build trust. All of these things come down to building trust so that down the road there is no conflict. And then when there is conflict, you have healthy tools to navigate that conflict. So that's it. Great answer. So Jeremie, we can't have a conversation these days and not talk about AI. Because it is it's so future oriented, right? We're talking about our future here. And so because you are focused on the human elements of leadership. We can't avoid it, but just tell me your thoughts on, where we go from here and how what you do is going to continue to stay top of mind, as I believe it is. What would you tell leaders who are, considering how to navigate this, kind of choppy waters, I would say?
So we built 5 Voices AI. Mm-hmm. So we built our own LLM, and so we have the best of ChatGPT, but we basically infused it with 5 Voices. While Chat knows 5 Voices, it's not as deep and it's not as thorough. And so we just basically created that. But here's the big idea. I think we're entering into the culture of hyper personalization, and like for instance, if you're watching this and you're in sales or marketing, well, who's the avatar? Who are you going after? You're going to sell differently or market differently to a nurturer than you would a connector. A nurturer makes up 43% of the population. 70% of them are women. So if you have that as your avatar, you should be speaking a different language. 7% of the population are pioneers, but they make up over 50% of the CEO or executive ranks. Interesting. There's like demographics. Well, we have all that information, so we can hyper target, not to manipulate, but to be more effective in communication. And so if you think about it, it's leveraging the best of tech and AI in order for you to be more effective, not less effective.
Yeah.
And it's only, I'll say this is pretty bold. It's only the lazy and what do you call someone who's not self-aware? A not self-aware, lazy person who's not going to have as much influence.
Yeah.
We have so much potential to know other people and then hyper-personalize emails, conversations, marketing, proposals. I mean, even to the degree of, if I'm going to give you a year-end review, well, I should give it differently based on if you're a pioneer than you are a connector or a nurturer. So we have all of that in our fingertips. So to leverage it only makes us a more influential person.
Yeah. And y'all have been, I would say, on the cutting edge of this for a while. Like you've been looking ahead for as long as I've known you, certainly, but I know that this has been in the works for a long time, building this tool and leveraging AI, but I really like your spin on it and your perspective. When we talk about your work, right, you have trained hundreds, thousands of people. Really, it's probably getting into the hundreds of thousands at this point in your career, right? You've trained a lot of people. So because of that, how have you seen your training aid companies looking to develop and retain their employees? Because a lot of the work we do in the generational side is how do you attract, retain, develop, and communicate better with people across the generational spectrum? So how do you leverage this training?
Well, there's short and there's then hard.
Yeah.
The hard but effective way, it'll take a company of size 2 to 3 years to actually get it in, because the idea is the most important people in your organization are the Sherpa.
Yeah.
And the Sherpa are your team leaders. Anyone who leads other people, they are like the Sherpa on Mount Everest. Mm-hmm. They have to climb while helping people climb. So the best strategy possible is to figure out how many people lead people. We have 100 people who actually lead other people. Okay, great. Out of those 100, do the Sherpa assessment. Give them a score 1 through 10 of how well they perform, and 1 through 10 how well they lead, and then average them across the whole. And the average that I found doing this thousands of times is 6-4. 6 in performance and 4 in leadership, which then gets my question: how's that working for you? And so they're like, not good enough. Yeah. Okay, so you have Sherpas who are just average in performance and below average in leadership. Well, spend all of your energy and time on those people, because those are subculture leaders. Leaders define culture, but sub-leaders define subculture. So if you can get those subculture leaders to know themselves, to know who's on their team, and then to develop their people, which again, the Voice-Driven Leader, my plug for that book, it tells you exactly how do you develop a person? How do you walk them through? And how do you develop a nurturer differently than you develop a connector or a guardian? And they're all developed differently. So there's a process. And this is why I say it's hard, because most people have to make the donuts every day, and they just wake up and I got to make the donuts. I got to do my reports. My boss wants this. And they just get worn out.
Yeah.
And they don't think intentionally about who they're leading and how to lead them and develop them all the way through the development square. And that's what we've been attempting to solve. And so you just have to if you're a company leader or a leader of leaders, you have to be intentional by going, we're going to build a system and we're going to use common language. We're going to use visual tools and mirrors for self-awareness. And we're going to create a system that actually works. But to install it takes a while.
Yeah.
It's hard.
And thanks for being honest about that, because it does not happen overnight. And sometimes leaders who I would argue are probably not super self-aware do expect to see that immediately. And so you have to know that it's going to take some time.
Yeah. And you know what they do, Kamber, is they go, we can just go find people. We can hire people. Yeah. And I go, okay, wait, hang on here.
Band-Aid.
When you hire someone, you know what you're hiring? You're hiring that other company's culture. You're hiring past cultures. So they bring their culture into your culture. Well, culture is atmosphere. And if you don't do it right, it'll fracture very quickly. And you'll have these toxic greenhouses. And nothing grows in a toxic greenhouse. Yeah,
I really think that is such an important soundbite for people to hear, because I don't think that is shared as widely as it should be, right? Like you're not bringing that person in with your culture right away. That takes time to integrate. So in the interest of time, which I feel like we could just be here so long, Jeremie, because you have some really great wisdom that you've shared with us today, I want to wrap up with a few last questions. The first one is, if you can tell us anything at all about some of the other businesses that you've worked on, because you have a very robust entrepreneurial career, as you mentioned earlier, and maybe something that you are working on in the future that you can share with us. And then also, tell us about where we can find your books. I mean, you're just doing some amazing work. So how can people find you?
Okay. So, the past, and this is what made me really get into doing what I'm doing now. So, in the past, I built some pretty large organizations. Built this brand called LeaderCast. It was a global simulcast that was very, very popular for a good 10-year run. I built the Catalyst conferences, had thousands of people live, 15,000 people in arenas, kind of these experiences. And we would create these 3-day crazy, the most fun I've ever had was doing Catalyst and creating. It's the most creative outlet. I used to own the John Maxwell companies, and we used to do all of thought leadership, big brands, publishing, speaking, partnered with Pat Lencioni and Henry Cloud and the likes, people like that. So I've just been around a lot of those kinds of things in the past. And I love it. It just didn't move the needle. It didn't move the transformation needle for me. And it didn't last, because we'd come in for a year and then they'd go, yeah, we're going to try something else. And I'm like, well, that's fine. But we were pitching content. In this case, we're pitching transformation. We're selling systems that people use. So I have a new one that we're launching right now. It's really fascinating. It's called Workplace, workplace.io. Go check this out. We've eliminated surveys and the need for surveys. We can track, if we have access to your Zoom or your Slack or your Microsoft Teams, those in particular, in about 20 minutes, we can track all the signals that are actually going on. And we can give you a culture health score for your entire company or per teams. We can tell you your employee engagement without you having to take a survey. We can tell you your burnout percentage, your conflict percentage, your decision-making fatigue. We can get into so many different pieces. And then we have an AI system that tells you insights on what you should do, recommendations per team. Really, really fun. So that is a new launch. As an example, I have lots of different businesses. I've started 30 something companies.
That's wild.
And so I'm always starting them with people, and I partner with operators, and we have a great team running that company. So that's a little bit about me. And then I'm doing a lot of work on the next generation, more to come on that. But you can find it at jeremiekubicek.com. Maybe you can put Kamber at the
we'll put it in our show notes.
My name is spelled a little differently, so IE instead of a Y. But so that's that. You can go to 5voices.com and take the 5 voices and find out who you are. Or you can find any of my books on Amazon. Really simple. The Voice-Driven Leader, the 5 Voices. The Peace Index is a hit. People love the Peace Index. And so any of those books the Communication Code, 5 Gears is on work-life balance. All of them have a little different shift. If you want to know about the Sherpa, that's the 100X leader. So all of them use really simple metaphor, really simple tools, but they're simple but powerful. And the more that you use them, the deeper you go, the more impact you'll have. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, and you still make time to mentor, you still make time for your family and relationships. I know that's, top priority for you. And I just appreciate, you supporting me and seeing value in the work that we do. It means a lot. And I would be remiss not to mention before we wrap up today, Jeremie, that, we're embarking on a cool opportunity with kind of plugging in generational content and research that we bring to the table and integrating it into a new certification this year that we're launching, pretty soon. I've been working with your team and we are very excited. So hopefully the timing will work out. This episode comes out around that time so we can really promote, but we've, that's all thanks to you. So I'm really excited to bring that generational angle to the 5 Voices content.
Your work is so important because it is any of the drama, the conflict, all those things that you had, it doesn't have to be that way. And I think what you're doing is so instrumental. And I think then what you saw in us is like, we could hyper personalize on top of what you're doing.
Yes.
You're looking at the generations. Now we look at the generations through the lens of personality and stress behavior.
Yes, as leaders.
And all of this as leaders. And all of a sudden you have these frameworks that can really be transformational. So kudos. Yeah. Well,
thank you for making it happen. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience before we wrap up today?
Yeah, just the idea that if you use this as a journey, like you can't give what you don't possess, and so the idea is that you're only as good as the core. Like the idea that a tree can only grow as high as its roots will allow, and so if you want to grow, if you want to be significant, you have to go deep. You have to do the inner work. You have to find out what's it like to be on the other side of you. You have to look and understand your stress behavior. You have to know your tendencies and patterns so that you can lead yourself. And when people see that you're leading yourself and they see that you're doing it, then there's no hypocrisy. And then people are willing to do what you ask them to do.
Thank you. This has been very inspiring for me as a leader, and I know for so many. So Jeremie, thank you so much for making the time and joining me on the show today.
Appreciate you. See ya.
And thank you for showing up and being a guest today on The Great Retention. So excited that you were here. And before you go, remember this: the generational landscape is shifting, and today's workforce is not the same workforce we once knew. Our mission is to help you save time and money by identifying these generational shifts and demystifying the generational differences through our workshops, leadership programs, and workforce planning. Contact us today if you're interested in transforming your multi-generational team, and let's drive your business towards long-term sustainability and success. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps others who are interested in this topic find episodes just like this. Last but not least, don't forget to share with your coworkers. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.